Photo of dirty man at game causes uproar. Coach calls him over. At first glance, he didn't belong there. Face smudged with coal dust, clothes stained from a hard day's work. But when Coach Calipari saw him, he knew this was no ordinary fan. And what happened next? No one could have predicted. In the heart of a coal mining town, hidden beneath layers of grit and perseverance, lived Michael McGuire, a man whose life revolved around two things: hard work and unwavering love for his 3-year-old son, Easton. Every morning before sunrise, Michael descended into the earth, where the air was thick with soot, the heat was suffocating, and the only light came from the flickering lamps strapped to the miners' helmets. For over 10 hours a day, Michael wielded his tools in the dark tunnels, carving out the coal that powered the town but slowly drained his energy. It was a job that left his body aching and his skin stained black, but Michael bore it with quiet determination. His goal was simple: to give Easton the kind of life he never had, a life filled with opportunities, laughter, and memories worth cherishing. Michael wasn't a man of extravagance. He didn't dream of luxury or recognition. His wealth was measured in smiles from his son, and his greatest pride came from keeping his promises. 1 week earlier, Michael had knelt beside Easton's tiny bed, promising the boy something he had been eagerly awaiting: a chance to watch the University of Kentucky men's basketball team play live. Easton's eyes sparkled with excitement. He had fallen in love with basketball, idolizing the players he watched on their small, grainy TV at home. The idea of sitting in the same arena as his heroes was more thrilling than any bedtime story Michael could tell. The promise weighed heavily on Michael's mind. The tickets weren't easy to come by, and coordinating the trip after a grueling shift at the mine was even harder. But he had made a vow to Easton, and failing to keep it wasn't an option. As game day approached, the anticipation in their tiny home grew palpable. Easton chattered endlessly about the players he hoped to see, while Michael, tired but determined, planned their evening down to the last minute. The day of the game was unforgiving. Michael's shift at the mine stretched longer than usual. The coal was stubborn, the machinery temperamental, and the hours dragged on as he worked to meet the day's quota. By the time the shift whistle blew, Michael was covered in soot from head to toe, his face a canvas of black smudges, his clothes damp and grimy. There was no time to go home, no time to clean up. The clock was ticking, and Michael knew every passing minute threatened to disappoint his son. So, with a quick swig of water and a glance at his reflection in a cracked, dusty mirror, he grabbed his car keys and drove straight to the arena. As they neared Rupp Arena, Easton's excitement was contagious. The boy's little hands clutched a miniature basketball, his wide eyes darting around, taking in the sea of people dressed in blue and white. Michael, however, felt the weight of countless stares. The parking lot was crowded, and Michael could sense the sideways glances as they walked toward the entrance. Strangers whispered, their eyes flickering between the spotless fans and the soot-covered man holding his son's hand. But Michael kept his gaze forward, his grip on Easton's hand tightening. "We're here for the game," he reminded himself. Not for them. When they finally stepped inside the brightly lit arena, the contrast was stark. The fluorescent lights reflected off polished floors and pristine jerseys, making Michael's coal-streaked appearance even more pronounced. As he found their seats among the sea of cheering spectators, a question lingered in his mind. Am I doing the right thing? He looked down at Easton, whose face was lit with awe and joy, and suddenly, the whispers and stares faded into irrelevance. As Michael and Easton settled into their seats, the arena buzzed with excitement. The crowd was a sea of blue and white. Pristine jerseys, fresh team merchandise, and enthusiastic fans chatting animatedly about the upcoming game. Under the dazzling arena lights, Michael's soot-covered face and clothes stood out like a smudge on an otherwise flawless canvas. The whispers started almost immediately. A couple seated a few rows ahead exchanged glances, one nudging the other. A group of teenagers a few seats away stole furtive looks, nudging each other with curious expressions. Some leaned in, whispering behind cupped hands. Michael could feel it all, the weight of their eyes, the silent judgments hanging in the air. He shifted uneasily in his seat, running a rough hand through his hair, only to smear more coal dust onto his forehead. The scent of sweat and machinery clung to him, a stark contrast to the crisp colognes and perfume of those around him. But then, Michael glanced at Easton. His son sat wide-eyed, his tiny hands gripping the edges of his seat in pure, unfiltered wonder. The glow of the giant screens reflected in his innocent eyes, and for a moment, Michael felt something deep within him settle. "We made it, buddy," he whispered, forcing a smile. Easton turned to his father with a toothy grin. "I can't believe we're really here, Dad." Michael exhaled slowly. Let them stare. Let them whisper. Nothing mattered more than the happiness radiating from his little boy. Amid the noise and excitement, a woman sitting a few rows behind them discreetly raised her phone. She didn't mean any harm. The sight of Michael, exhausted but unwavering, covered in coal dust yet holding his son with such tenderness, struck a chord deep within her. With a simple caption, she posted the photo online. A hard-working father who didn't want to miss his son's big night. True dedication. At first, it was just another post in the endless stream of social media content. But something about the raw authenticity of the image caught fire. The likes poured in. The shares multiplied. Within hours, the photo was spreading across platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Some comments were filled with admiration. "This is what true love looks like. Respect to this dad. Hard work and fatherhood at its finest." Suddenly, others, however, weren't as kind. Why would he come to a public place looking like that? Can't he at least clean up? It's a basketball game, not a mine shaft. The internet, as always, was divided. Some saw a devoted father. Others saw an eyesore disrupting their idealized sports experience. Michael, unaware of the online storm brewing around him, was simply living in the moment, cheering for the Wildcats with Easton, oblivious to the fact that their night was turning into something far bigger than he could have imagined. In his office, scrolling through his social media feed between game preparations, Coach John Calipari saw the photo. He paused, staring at the man in the image. The dark-streaked face, the weary yet joyful eyes, the little boy sitting beside him with boundless enthusiasm. It was a snapshot of pure love, of sacrifice, of priorities in their truest form. Without hesitation, Coach Calipari called one of his staff members. "Find this man," he said firmly. "I want to meet him." Minutes later, a staff member scanned the arena, searching row by row. When they finally spotted Michael and Easton, Calipari didn't send someone else. He went himself. As Michael sat, still focused on the game, he felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned, and there stood Coach Calipari, an expression of genuine admiration on his face. "Sir," the coach said, extending a hand, "I just wanted to say, you're an inspiration." Michael blinked, momentarily speechless. "Me?" he asked, his voice rough and tired. Calipari nodded. "You remind all of us what's really important. Your dedication to your son, to your family, it's incredible." Michael, humbled and slightly overwhelmed, shook his head. "I'm just a dad doing what any dad would do." But Calipari knew better. In a world where priorities often get lost in the pursuit of status and appearances, Michael's actions were a reminder of what truly matters. The coach invited Michael and Easton to meet the team after the game, offering them an experience they'd never forget. By the time the buzzer sounded and the Wildcats celebrated their victory, Michael and Easton found themselves ushered into the locker room, surrounded by players who now looked at Michael with a newfound respect. The internet might have been divided, but here, in this moment, there was nothing but admiration and respect for a father who had put his son above everything else. As they posed for photos with the team, Michael realized something profound. It wasn't about how he looked or what others thought. It was about showing up, being present, and making memories that would last a lifetime. The photo of Michael McGuire and his son, Easton, had ignited something far beyond the confines of Rupp Arena. Within hours, local news stations picked up the story, and soon it was splashed across national headlines. A father sacrifice. The coal miner who put family first. The headlines read, accompanied by the now viral image of Michael, his face and clothes covered in soot, sitting proudly beside his son. The response was overwhelming. Strangers from all walks of life resonated with the image of sacrifice and love. Offers of support flooded in. Hotel chains offered free stays, local restaurants extended meal vouchers, and even a car dealership reached out, offering Michael a brand new vehicle to ease his daily commute. Back home, Michael's wife, Emily, was stunned as she scrolled through her phone, witnessing the story unfold in real time. Friends and family called, their voices filled with pride and astonishment. "Michael, you're everywhere," his sister exclaimed over the phone. Emily, holding Easton in her arms, wiped away a tear. "He's just doing what he always does," she whispered, smiling down at their son. "Loving us in his own way." Despite the overwhelming attention, Michael remained humble, still processing the fact that his simple act of attending a game with his son had touched so many lives. When reporters finally caught up with him, Michael stood in the doorway of his modest home, the smell of coal dust still lingering in the air. Cameras flashed, microphones were shoved in his direction, but his response remained genuine and unassuming. "I never expected any of this," he said, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. "I was just trying to keep a promise to my boy." The reporters pressed further, asking how he felt about the outpouring of support and recognition. Michael's eyes softened as he glanced at Easton, who was standing proudly by his side, beaming. "I don't need all this attention," he admitted, "but if this story reminds folks to put their families first, then I guess it's worth it." Easton, oblivious to the weight of the moment, tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, does this mean we can go to more games now?" Michael chuckled, ruffling the boy's hair. "Maybe, buddy. Maybe." To him, fame was fleeting, but the joy in his son's eyes, that was priceless. When asked how he felt about being called a hero, Michael simply shook his head. "I'm not a hero. I'm just a dad doing what any dad should do." This raw humility only endeared him further to the public, reinforcing the notion that true heroism often lies in the quiet, everyday sacrifices that often go unnoticed. Coach John Calipari, moved by the unwavering dedication of Michael, decided to take things one step further. In a surprise announcement, he invited Michael and Easton to another game, this time with an all-access VIP experience. When the invitation arrived, Michael hesitated. "I don't need special treatment," he muttered. But Easton's hopeful gaze convinced him otherwise. The next game was an experience unlike any other. Michael and Easton were greeted at the entrance by Coach Calipari himself, who ushered them to courtside seats. The players, now familiar with their story, greeted Michael with high fives and fist bumps, treating him like one of their own. Before the game, Calipari took the microphone, addressing the packed stadium. "Tonight, we honor a man who reminds us all of what truly matters, family. Michael McGuire, thank you for showing us what real dedication looks like." The arena erupted into cheers, and for the first time, Michael felt something stir within him. Pride, but not for himself. Pride in knowing that his actions, however small they seemed to him, had resonated with thousands. The surprises didn't end there. The team presented Easton with a custom jersey signed by all the players, and Michael was given a commemorative plaque, recognizing his dedication not just to his family, but as a representative of hardworking parents everywhere. Behind the scenes, support continued to pour in. Several organizations dedicated to helping coal miners and blue-collar workers reached out, offering financial assistance, educational opportunities for Easton, and even medical support for Michael and his colleagues who faced health risks from years of working underground. Michael, overwhelmed yet grateful, accepted the help not just for himself, but for his fellow workers who toiled in the shadows, often without recognition. As Michael drove home from the game that night, Easton fast asleep in the back seat clutching his new jersey, he couldn't help but reflect. He never wanted fame. He never sought attention. But through one simple act, showing up, despite the grime and exhaustion, he had reminded an entire community of what truly mattered. Looking at his son in the rearview mirror, Michael smiled. "We did good today, buddy." And in that quiet moment, amidst the echoes of cheering crowds and flashing cameras, he realized that sometimes the smallest acts of love have the power to make the biggest impact. In a world that constantly moves at a breakneck speed, it's easy to get lost in the pursuit of success, wealth, and recognition. But Michael Maguire's story serves as a powerful reminder that the most valuable things in life aren't material. They're the promises we keep, the moments we share, and the sacrifices we make for the ones we love. Michael didn't show up to the basketball game for himself. He showed up because he made a promise to his son, one that, to him, outweighed the fatigue, the grime, and the judgment of strangers. His story echoes the silent sacrifices made by millions of parents around the world. Parents who work long hours, who endure discomfort, who put their children's happiness before their own pride. The beauty of love lies not in grand gestures, but in simple acts of devotion. The father who works late shifts so his child can go to school. The mother who skips meals so her kids can have enough. The parent who, no matter how exhausted, still shows up because they promised they would. Michael's coal-streaked face wasn't a sign of neglect. It was a badge of honor, a testament to his unwavering commitment to Easton. Love, after all, isn't measured by appearance. It's measured by presence, by action, and by the sacrifices we are willing to make. This story reminds us that keeping a promise, no matter how small, can mean the world to someone. And sometimes, the most profound acts of love are the ones done quietly, without expectation of praise or recognition. Michael's story isn't just about a father's love. It's about the unseen, unrecognized workforce that keeps society running. Every day, countless individuals work tirelessly in jobs that go unnoticed. Miners, factory workers, janitors, delivery drivers. People who rarely receive applause, but whose efforts sustain our daily lives. His story forces us to pause and reflect. How often do we acknowledge those who work behind the scenes? Do we take time to appreciate the sacrifices they make? Are we truly aware of the value they bring to our communities? The coal dust on Michael's skin symbolizes more than just hard labor. It represents resilience, perseverance, and an unwavering sense of duty. It's a reminder that the individuals who toil in the shadows deserve respect, support, and recognition. As a society, we must do better to honor them, not just with viral posts and fleeting attention, but with real action. This means advocating for better working conditions, fair wages, and support systems that uplift those who dedicate their lives to thankless jobs. If Michael's story teaches us anything, it's that behind every bright light, there's someone working tirelessly to keep it shining. And it's time we start showing them the gratitude they deserve. As Michael's story spread, it touched hearts across the world, not because of the circumstances, but because of the universal truth it represented. In every culture, every country, every family, there are parents like Michael who give everything they have without expecting anything in return. This story is a call to action, to appreciate our loved ones while we still can, to recognize the everyday heroes around us, to never underestimate the power of showing up, no matter the odds. Each share, each conversation sparked by Michael's experience is a chance to remind others of what truly matters. It's not the clothes we wear, the car we drive, or the opinions of strangers that define us. It's the love we give and the promises we keep. So now, the question remains, are you willing to sacrifice for your loved ones the way Michael did? Are you ready to show up, no matter what it takes? The story of Michael Maguire isn't just his own. It belongs to every parent, every worker, every person who understands that true success lies in the love we share and the lives we touch. Let this story inspire us to be better, to do better, and to always choose love over appearances. Because in the end, it's not the applause that matters. It's the quiet moments that leave the deepest impact.